When focusing on anything in life, trademark is a thing you have to focus on. I say that word for a particular reason because it wasn't until a month ago I didn't realize that this dude that was my guest tonight, for those of you on YouTube, that the trust fund manager used to be Trademark. That's how rookie-ish I still am to the YWC, but is episode number 192 of YWC Football Talk. The trust fund benefactor Jared Silverclay and I are here to get you primed for week 10 of the NFL season.
Easy, easy, easy. Can't blow up my spot like that. I graduated from the middle class lifestyle on YouTube a long time ago.
Oh, but sometimes it's good, especially on a Thursday. TBT, Throwback Thursday. You know how it is.
No. TFT, Trust Fund Thursday. That's what we're here for.
Trust fund. It is a trust fund Thursday, folks. And we're here too. The trust fund benefactor and I, we're here not to preview the games, not to shoot on teams, even though that might happen down the road, but we're here to help you guys win some money. Why? Because with every game, we also tell you what we like for gambling, and we might even tell you some player props to take.
We sure do. I got tickets. I got tickets for days.
I got tickets for tonight. I'm not posting it because, look, it's not Tampa. That's Sunday morning. Atlanta and Carolina, all I got for tonight. I have Terrace Marshall touchdown, and I have Algier over 34.5 yards. What?
I like Algier. I don't like any receiver props tonight at all. The weather's going to be the shits, and both these teams, even under ideal conditions, run the ball like crazy. Any running back props, I'm all for it tonight. No receiver props. You couldn't even pay me to take that FanDuel Super Boost with Pitts and what's his face, DJ Moore, each to get 25 yards. I'm not even confident in that.
I'm not even confident. As soon as I saw Cordell Patterson under the DraftKings boost, I was like, yo, they're cold. Every time DraftKings posts someone or Bleacher Report betting posts, we're in with DraftKings on this boost for tonight from like plus 125 to plus 200. I'm like, stop suckering people in.
You know, they have burned people on those boots, but I am bullish on Cordell tonight. Bullish on Deonta Foreman for sure. I do think Algier could have a pretty big game as well, but I just think it's going to be, they're just going to be feeding the running backs. Apparently the weather's supposed to be really, really bad tonight. So, I mean, when these teams last played, both on the Carolina side, Hubbard and Foreman, Hubbard had 63. Foreman, I want to say, had like 118 around there. So I could see this being a game like that.
But overall for spread for tonight, I'm going to say this. I really like Carolina plus 2.5.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I mean, Atlanta's probably due for a little bit of a cool down. These teams splitting seems about right.
It's also a uniform bet too. I don't know if you saw, but Carolina's going for an all-black uniform for tonight as well. And when I see uniform bets like I saw last week with the Texans, I took them to cover. So, sometimes you just got to go with the uniform bets.
Yep. No, I'm usually in favor of the color rush, although I'll never forget when Miami did it that one year, and they looked like the Miami traffic cones, as my dad called them.
Oh, yes, the orange, the classic orange.
Yes.
Well, anyway, this Sunday, the NFL is actually making history because for the first time ever, there will be a game in Munich, Germany, the last 9:30 game of the NFL season. Tampa Bay versus Seattle. Seattle +3. The over-under being at 44.5. I'm going to give you two reasons why I like the Bucs to win. One, I think Vegas is trying to sucker people in for that +3, kind of like how when your Giants went to Seattle a few weeks ago, they were an underdog, or how they were an underdog against Jacksonville, kind of that you're expecting Seattle to have a letdown spot. The other reason, Tom Brady is 3-0 in international games in his career. Call me crazy, but things like that happen.
No, it is a good point. And Seattle feels like, they're due for a little bit of a cool down as well. I mean, they've been overachieving, some would say, this season. And plus these international games, they're a little funky. The Bucs have been really banged up, but I'm not sure that Seattle is really the defense to capitalize on their offensive line deficiencies. And plus Brady's, once again, he's finding chemistry with those unknown wide receivers, just like Tom Brady always does. Go figure. Even on a team where you got Mike Evans, you got Chris Godwin, who is his guy? Who is his guy?
Cade Otton
on the game-winning drive. Cade Otton. So yeah, no, I could see. I think the Bucs know that it's kind of crunch time for them. They've had such a bad start to this season. If they want a shot at the playoffs, they got to start stacking the dubs. And yeah, I mean, might be an upset. Who would have thunk it? But I think they're going to win.
I also think this is going to be I can't see this being a high scoring game. I can see this being a very defensive football game. Like give me a 20-17 kind of game. Give me something slow like that. Where it's basically all about who can make a play in crunch time. And when you're asking me to debate Tom Brady versus anyone in crunch time, I'm always going to go Brady.
Yep. No, the clutch gene, he's still never lost it. Obviously, he's a little more undermanned this year. The Bucks are they're an aging, depleting, more injury-prone team. But I do think that this past Sunday showed the difference between them and the Packers. The Packers are a team that's really like devoid of talent. And the Bucks, I think there are still pieces there to win. Maybe not pieces to be as dominant as they once were. Maybe not pieces to make them a Super Bowl contender this year. But this team, I tend to think that they're going to find a way to scratch out another division title. I think that they're still the best team in the NFC South. I think Atlanta's building a little something that's a little bit better than expected, but they're not there yet. I think the Saints have a lot more holes than people realized at the start of this season, and the Panthers are a total lost cause. So yeah, I think the Bucks they're gonna get right to an extent. They're gonna get at least 9 wins this year.
I can see it because like the Bucks after. I just want to pull up the schedules quickly because I even know Atlanta too. I feel like if they lose tonight, it could be the start of like a downward spiral. Considering they also have lost to the Bengals and the Chargers, but then like the Falcons after this, you have the Bears with a much improved Justin Fields. You have the Commanders who are a bit of a wild card. Then you have the Steelers. Then they have their late bye week, but then their last 4 games is at New Orleans, at Baltimore versus Arizona, and then versus Tampa. So we'll see what happens there. But then with the Buccaneers, I know they have the bye week, and then they go to Cleveland, but then they host the Saints. They go to San Fran, which I know San Fran's good, but that's a Brady homecoming game. So I'm just going to throw that out there. Bengals, Cardinals, Panthers, Falcons. Like the last 3 games on their schedule are easily winnable for this Buccaneers team. So I could see them getting away to 9-8 this year. I think it's very possible. Like going into your bye week 5-5 could really be a make or break point for them. If they go into the bye week at 4-6, yeah, you can probably hit the panic button on them just a little bit, or like hover it open, not like hit it properly. Excuse me, but like when you just lift the cover, that's right. What you can do. That's what you can do.
Hover it, like the guy, the meme, the cartoon guy with the sweat pouring down his face. Yes. Do I press it or do I not? That's a perfect one. And but you know what? It's only because of the division that they play in. Because here's the thing that that the Packers are in panic mode right now because they've got the Vikings that are shockingly stringing together wins for once, but this division, they don't have a runaway winner. There's really no team that's emerged from the pack. So until that happens, of course, we're going to fall back on the Buccaneers because, on paper, they look like they should be the best team. And, we've got faith that they are going to eventually, I think, get it right. So I think that I think that this is an opportunity for them, get back to 500, start to right the ship a little bit. Brady can get hot at the right time. I definitely think that the season's well within the grasp for this team.
I completely agree. I still think there's a chance for them to shine. I know a lot of people are kind of, and I'll say this too, because I know my team's on the bye week, so I can say this. I'd much rather have the situation that the Patriots are in than have a depleting Tom Brady play for New England, because I think it would just be a lot more harder to watch, kind of like the whole like Big Ben last year, where you're kind of like you're watching your idol like deteriorate by your eyes. But the fact he's on another team, it softens the blow for a lot of people who are still Brady fans, even though there's still a lot of people who actively root for the Buccaneers because of him. I just like to see him do well personally. I'm not rooting for the Buccaneers to win football games.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point to make too. I mean, especially considering that, I'm not so sure that the Patriots would be a better team this year with Tom Brady as their quarterback. Maybe slightly, somewhat. Maybe that I would say that Bears game probably doesn't spiral out of control for you, but just based on the landscape of the rest of that division and how much the Dolphins and the Jets shockingly have stepped up, it's one of those things where like, do you want to see Tom Brady at this stage in his career as a potential like last place team with the same team that he won 6 Super Bowls with? It is. I think you're right. It does soften the blow probably for you guys to see him with another team, because you can always chalk this year up to, hey, we're rebuilding. We're not there yet. The Dolphins just traded for the best wide receiver, maybe the best wide receiver in the NFL, and the Bills are obviously a Super Bowl contender. Jets got some talent. We don't have to win this year.
Yeah, that's always been my thing. My big thing was, but like, because obviously American Thanksgiving's in 2 weeks, and they're going to start showing you in the hunt graphics. So as long as we can stay in the hunt graphics and potentially leapfrog, say in LA or something, and sneak our way into the playoffs, I'm more than okay with that. This year was never about winning. This year was just about progress. Now, obviously, there's been some regressions in here there, and the only thing I'll say about the Bears game is too, I think it's like you guys against the Seahawks. It's just one of those games. Nothing goes your way.
Yep.
I know Mac played bad, but at the same time, too, the defense couldn't tackle. Special teams was off. It was just you have those in every single sport. No matter how good you are, you're gonna have a stinker. I know your baseball season ended badly, but during the regular season, for as much as they were dominating teams, yeah, the Yankees had a few stinkers along the way. It happens in sport.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a long season, and you hear it all the time in football. Any given Sunday, and sometimes you sleep on a team. We see it all the time. There's trap games, there's upsets, and it was just Patriots just had one of those days, and it just happened to come against a team that a lot of people thought that they would beat.
Exactly. That's when it always happens. I don't know what it was. I got so I obviously message resident guest Danny here quite often when we discuss stuff. And I, for some reason, messaged him at like 6:00 that night saying I don't have a good feeling about this game. It's just those like gut feelings telling you like something's not right. That's what happened in that situation. But anyway, we're gonna move on to Sunday. Tennessee versus Denver. Denver being a +3 favorite coming off the bye. I look at that over under. I'm gonna say something though. If Ryan Tannehill plays, take that over 37.5 points. Because for as good as Denver's defense can be, it's Tractor Cito season. Give me Denver, give me Tennessee, and give me the points. I'm just going to say that flat out right now.
Yeah, no, and I mean Tannehill playing obviously would help, but although I wouldn't count this Tennessee team out even if he sits because Derrick Henry is officially back. I kind of had my doubts about him earlier this season, especially after, the injury last year. He's getting to that age with running backs, right? It seems like, 27, 28 is kind of the make or break point. As you get closer to 30, it's a young man's position. But Derrick Henry is, at this point, back to his old self in the sense that he's still running through defenses. He's definitely slowed down, but he's such a physical runner that he can still make the gains. He can still get those 100-yard games and put this team on his back. So Titans, I mean, they're all of a sudden, they're putting together, winning football again. And Denver, I mean, this is an offense that's scoring 17 points a game. So even if they're stuck with Malik Willis again, Tennessee can pull out a 17-10 win. It's going to be another one of those ugly grind 'em out games. Denver has to be banned from primetime for the foreseeable future. I mean, how many primetime games were they put on this year because they were expecting a Russell Wilson air show, and they've all been horrible.
Let's see. They had week 1. They had
Seattle,
week 3.
yep.
Seattle. Mm-hmm. They had San Francisco. They had the lovely game against the Indianapolis Colts.
The San Francisco game was hideous too.
Yeah.
11-10.
So you had those 3. You had the standalone game in London. Obviously, it's on prime time, but still, there's no other competition on.
Yep.
They have one more, and I'm telling you right now, it's not going to get flexed out because they play Kansas City, and the NFL is not going to flex Patrick Mahomes out of prime.
You're right. They're not going to, but it's going to. Yeah, it's going to be the Mahomes show.
You're not touching the golden goose.
Yep. And I mean that would really be the cherry on top because we've yet to see we've really, for the most part, yet to see the evisceration of the Denver defense this year, right? I mean, we've seen the implosion of the offense on multiple occasions. It is astonishing to me, scheme really matters, and sometimes the ingredients just do not mesh together. I mean, there is Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton. Any quarterback would love to play with those guys, but it is not mattering one little bit for this team. They just can't figure it out.
It's just, I think it's that thing where everyone expected them to be so good and then they weren't. I say this all the time. I remember asking on the podcast, for a long time, who's the best team in the AFC West? And I always said that basically how the standings are is how I thought it was going to go. I said Kansas City, I said LA, I said Denver, I said Vegas. I never had faith in Vegas, and I'm proven to be right there. Denver, I was just I don't know what's going to happen. And with Kansas City, all along, I'm looking around You motherfuckers forget who plays quarterback for them. I know everyone's like, oh, like, oh no, they don't have Tyreek Hill. I'm like, at the same time, it's Mahomes and Kelsey. The only thing is, I'll say with Mahomes is I don't like watching him on Sunday Night Football, and Chris Collinsworth sound like he's like going to town on himself watching him play.
Mahomes. I mean, this guy, he's amazing. He's the best quarterback I've ever seen.
Yeah, like he's literally like full pitch in a tent under the table with Tirico and stuff watching him play.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, to your point, it's like Mahomes is that good where like the pieces are pretty much they're going to be, I mean, not entirely interchangeable, but he's got good guys. Juju Smith-Schuster is good. Valdez-Scantling is good. Kelsey is obviously his guy, and they're just gonna find ways. And I mean, man, if they unlock the Kadarius Toney weapon, then like I could be crying in the corner over here about what were we thinking. But man, I don't regret that move one bit though, because that's another case where he was not working out with us, and the situation with us wasn't going to get any better. So he can go and become a Pro Bowl player in Kansas City, but if he stayed with us, he might have been horrible throughout his career and like never seen the field.
Exactly. It's just one of those things where you cut the ties off before it's too late. That's what you did, and it is what it is. Miami versus Cleveland. Cleveland going down to South Beach is a 3.5-point underdog with a 49.5 over under. I'm going to say this right now. I don't know where I want to lean with who wins because this honestly could be a coin flip with how weird Miami's been. But the way they've been playing and the way they've been letting up points, how can you not look at that over under and say over 49.5? I could easily see this could be a goofy shootout game because Cleveland's been known to get into a few of those this year.
They have, and they usually wind up losing them too. I mean, Cleveland's defense this year has been extremely disappointing from what they've been, in the last couple of years. I mean, Miami, if Tua's healthy, they're just going to shred every team. It looks like Waddle and Hill, they're just lighting it up week in and week out. And Miami's defense is getting exposed on the ground, but well, I mean, you're getting exposed, like, period in all areas. But I don't think that Cleveland offers, I'm not sure that they've got enough to capitalize through the air to keep up with what Miami's going to be throwing at them. I mean, I definitely see this game playing out probably similar to the last couple of Miami games against the Lions, against the Bears. But I think Miami's still gonna, eke it out. It's probably gonna be just like those games, a lot of points and everything. But I just think that the Tua's gonna wind up making more throws than Brissett does.
I just thought something while you were talking. Give me Miami to win, but give me Cleveland to cover. I could see a 3-point game here easily. The other thing I want to point out for fantasy or daily fantasy, and especially if you're in half PPR point per game. Amari Cooper at home averages about 19.5 PPR per game.
Yep.
4.5 on the road. So that's when stuff like that comes into play. I know it's like, it's just fantasy football. At the same time, too, fantasy football, look, for us imaginary GMs out there like Jared and I, fantasy football matters. And when I see stuff like that, like, that's where I take Miami because at the end of the day, when it's like when you look at like who the weapons are, for as good as the weapons have been in Cleveland this year for what they have, Waddle and Hill, like, it takes them one game and they just go full goofy on you. So that's where I come with Miami. But I feel like eventually they're going to face an elite defense and get completely stunned. That's just what I think is going to happen to them one day. It's going to catch up to them and they're going to lose a game. And then the whole world's going to react and be like, oh, are they a contender? Are they this? Because, this is the league of overreactions.
Yeah, no, it is. And Miami does have some weaknesses up front. So, yeah, when they do face that defense that's really able to bully them up front, this offense is going to be neutralized and people are going to be like, oh, wow. But you know what? At the same time, the Bengals have offensive line deficiencies and they made the Super Bowl. I was making this point, to my dad the other day. He's a big Dolphins fan, but he hates Tua. And I said, the Dolphins may not be a perfect team, but one thing they do have is a legitimate downfield passing attack that at any moment in the game can drive down the field and score a touchdown. Yes. And if you have that, you can beat anybody on the right day. So the Dolphins, they may not, they may not be the most well-rounded. Obviously, their defense, they have holes. Offensive line, not the best. But if the wind's blown in their direction, if things are going their way, they can beat any team in the NFL with these weapons.
100%. I'm just looking at their schedule right now. So they have their bye week next week, and then they play home to the Texans. But they have a 3-week stretch in December that I think could truly make or break their season. They play at San Francisco, they play at the Chargers, and then they go to Buffalo. If you can come out of that stretch 2-1, you're looking good. But if you go 1-2 in that stretch, I think that's when you start to settle in on. We were talking earlier about the guys sweating over the panic button. That's when you attempt to open the lid if they go 1-2 in that stretch, or if they go to Buffalo and get like absolutely dog walked like they normally do against Buffalo.
Well, they actually beat Buffalo early this season, despite a.
I know. I'm just saying.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's I mean, I think that it's fair to expect Buffalo to get their win back and split with them because they're Buffalo, and then losing to the same team twice doesn't really make a whole heck of a lot of sense. Although I will point out that for my Giants, 2016, the Cowboys were the number 1 seed in the NFC, and the Giants beat them twice. So, and in divisions, it's not completely out of the question. I will say in that stretch, the 49ers could be that game. That could be the game where, all of a sudden in terms of the trenches, there's a little bit of a rude awakening there. I'm going to mark the Chargers down as a Miami win. Yeah. So even if they're 1-2, that's the one right there. But that could be the stretch that takes them from Super Bowl contender to upstart wildcard team.
Yeah, I still think they are. They probably will get in the wildcard team unless the wheels fall off or someone gets injured. But it's like one of those things. Only time will tell. But I do agree with you. My only thing is that if Tua outlasts Herbert, you're going to get everyone. Or if Herbert outplays Tua, you're going to get the whole. Oh, we should have drafted Herbert. Why did we take Herbert? Tua's this. Tua's that. I'm like, guys, chill the fuck out. Come on.
No, I mean, I think it's fair to say this. Herbert is a better quarterback than Tua. I think most people would acknowledge that by now. Yeah. And this year, if anybody's opinion is changing of that, you're looking at Tua, who is playing with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and then you're comparing him to Herbert, who Keenan Allen's been hurt for most of the year, and now Mike Williams is getting hurt. He's throwing to Josh Palmer and DeAndre Carter. So, it's not a fair comparison.
And we're learning, too, that I can't wait for the season to be done, and we learn that, he's been playing with, fucked up ribs since, week 2.
That, too. Yeah.
We have our first stinker of the weekend, folks. We have the Pittsburgh Steelers hosting the New Orleans Saints. Saints -2 over under 40.5. Give me the Saints because I just don't trust Pittsburgh. Unless TJ Watt comes back, which I haven't heard much about that this week. This reeks of a 16-13 game, I just think when it comes to quarterback play, I trust Andy Dalton more than I trust Small Hands Pickett. And especially too, for everyone saying, wasting a first-round picks, how about the Steelers giving Najee Harris the old kick to the curb in his second season?
Oh, yeah. No, yeah. That was one that was interesting to me because I was actually doubtful of Najee last year. I thought the guy was very overranked fantasy-wise, and I was like, I don't know about – the Steelers, offensive line woes. I'm not sure that this is really that sexy of a pick, especially that high. And he actually had a pretty good rookie year this year. No, completely, non-factor, total non-factor. Speaking of rookies, by the way, both these teams boasting very impressive, exceptional rookie wide receivers that are just saddled in completely, I would say, pretty much inept offenses. The Saints have inconsistently put up some points this year, but I think that Andy Dalton has got to go. I think it's at a point right now. You got to bring Jameis Winston back. Let him start these games. He's not perfect, but he's better than Dalton. I like the Saints to win here. I think it's gonna be ugly as well. Alvin Kamara, I expect him to probably have a pretty good game. He's had his moments this year, but it's been tough sledding for both of these teams. The Steelers are in total rebuild mode now with Pickett, and the game's just gonna be ugly.
Yeah, and the Saints, too, I'm trying to figure them out because they're in a situation that you're saying earlier, they're not as good as we thought at the beginning of the year. I always thought the Saints would be a team challenging for a wild card spot. At this point, too, they for all we know, they still could just because the NFC is so wide open, and I feel like the gap between being good and mediocre is not very far off from one another because there's a lot of teams we'll talk about it in a bit, but there's like two teams that I can see right now being like legit Super Bowl contenders, and then there's a bunch of teams where I'm like, okay, you're there. You're gonna win your division. Like we know so far the division winners, if we had to guess, I'd say probably Philadelphia and Minnesota are like the only two who really have their divisions wrapped up. Besides that, the South and the West are completely wide open for the most part.
And the South has a losing record.
Yeah.
The Saints, for as bad as they've looked, I mean, they look terrible against the Ravens. They're 3-6. They're only one game out of first place.
They also don't play another first place or another team with a winning record until week 17 when they go to Philly. I'm going to ring off their schedule because I know a bit of it. But they also have a late bye week. But they play the Steelers, they play the Rams, they play they play the 49ers, they play the Bucs, the Falcons, the Browns, the Eagles, and the Panthers. They can easily, if they if they win this week 4-6, if they can win one of the ones at the Rams or the Niners, which if Matt Stafford's in concussion protocol, there's a very good chance they do, especially in the Dome.
Even if he's not in concussion protocol.
He's not?
I said even if he's not in concussion protocol.
Yeah.
Who can he can't seem to complete a pass to anybody not named Cooper Kupp. Exactly.
And there was me here all offseason saying, buy your Allen Robinson stocks in fantasy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, what a bad deal that wound up being. It would have been, it would have been really funny if Robert Woods was having a great season in Tennessee too.
Yeah. My only thing with the Saints is that they are their own worst enemy at the moment. They're going to go as far as they will let themselves go. They're going to shoot themselves in the foot, especially considering the division that they're in. Moving on to this is weird for me to say, kind of greener pastures, and I don't. So I'm going to tell you. I'm going to base a bit of a story. I'm going to shoot off for you. Going into this week, I was like, I'm on Chicago. Also, if you're playing daily fantasy or fantasy, start Justin Fields. He's going to go cuckoo in this game because I believe the Lions allow the third most fantasy points to quarterbacks. But there is a little voice, not a little voice. I go on Twitter. I follow a lot of insiders in the gambling community. Do you want to know what the most bets placed this week have been? Chicago -3.
Really?
For that reason, give me a Lions cover. +3.
Why not a Lions win?
That's the thing. I think this is a game that potentially screams upset. My only thing with the Lions is that video that came out from the locker room. I'm like, guys, you seem fired up and hugging, and like it's your second win of the season. I'm like,
yeah, but getting to beat Aaron Rodgers. I mean, this is a team that like he's absolutely destroyed the Lions for how many years now. I mean, they finally get to beat him. I'd be fired up too.
I know. I'm just saying. I'm like the Lions. I think my questions with them has been they're that team that like look. Everyone watched Hard Knocks and bought into them, being like they're going to do good, and then they beat the football team week 2. They nearly beat the Eagles week 1. Imagine how the Eagles season would have gone if that had happened.
Right.
But they fell off they basically were good. Remember, they were going cuckoo week 4, and then week 5, walking to Foxborough with yours truly in the building, laid a fucking goose egg, and they haven't been able to score since. I know they had the one game against Miami, but like most of their games have been fairly ugly. I feel like, and also here's my thing too, because like with last week, I was big on Green Bay +3.5. I thought Aaron Rodgers, no problem, gonna take care of business. That was wrong, and I banned betting on the Packers. My only thing is with this though, when I look at the Lions, I'm just like, they're a frisky team, and I feel like we're due for like I said, for as much as Justin Fields can go off in this game, I think he is due for a potential game where he doesn't exactly light the world on fire. I think he can still play pretty well. I just don't think we can go out there every week and expect him to be like lighting it up. If he does, good on him.
Well, sure. And I mean, the Bears are, much like the Giants, they're one of those teams where if the running game isn't working for them, whether that applies to the running backs or the quarterback, they this team's going to become, pretty, ineffective really quickly because they're very limited in what they can do in terms of throwing the ball, because Mooney's just kind of a here or there boom or bust guy, and Chase Claypool, that trade's irrelevant. That guy sucks. Detroit early this season, I would say before that Patriots game, I was saying that Detroit was fitting my usual narrative with them, which is like they're the best bad team in the NFL. They have playmakers on offense. It's just that the defense is a sieve, and they always seem to get into these shootouts where the game gets away from them. However, we've seen in the Patriots game and the Cowboys game and, in the Packers game as well that, sometimes this offense can get really bottled up and the game gets hideous. That being said, The team does have playmakers. I don't understand their deal with DeAndre Swift. I have no idea why. I mean, Jamal Williams has played pretty well for them, but I just feel like they're really underutilizing Swift. That guy, early second round pick from a couple of years ago, seems to play great whenever they give him the ball. I think that like he needs to kind of take over and like be more of the guy over there. But between him, Jamal, Amon-Ra, losing Hawkinson kind of hurts a little bit. But I think that they've got more firepower than the Bears do. I will say that. I think that they've got more in terms of quick strike weapons on that team. So I think that the Lions will probably win this game.
The Lions also have a really underrated offensive line as well.
Yeah, Sewell,
Frank Ragnow. They've got some players up there. There's a couple other guys I'm blanking on names. Oh, they have the Dan Skipper guy. I just remember it because Dan Campbell in his press conference after to beat the football team. He's like, Skip, great freaking job, man. Like Dan Campbell seems like a great character guy. It's just my whole thing is it's like I'm going to give a wrestling example. I'm going to go to, how obviously he's back and he's on fire now, Bray Wyatt, but you know how before in the past they always tried to you couldn't reinvent him, so it always kind of fizzled out? That similar logic I think could apply to Dan Campbell eventually if by next year, I think he's done enough to this point now to where even if they win 4 games this year, I think he keeps his job for 23, but I think in 23, it's got to be that you're probably going to have a new quarterback. You have to take the next step. You don't take the next step next year, you're probably going to be gone.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's no tolerance in the NFL for extended losing. And he can be a rah-rah guy. The team can get fired up. But at the end of the day, these owners, they pay for results. And, there's really no such thing as moral victories in the league. You can only ride that from you basically have I would say a year, maybe 2 of breathing room when you sign up to be the coach of a bad team. Because the first year you can stress there's some work to be done. But we see it all the time. Usually by the end of the second year, if they're not seeing progress, they're going to be like, you know what, you're done. This isn't going anywhere. Because I'm sorry, it doesn't take that long to get good in the NFL if you know what you're doing.
Yeah. Look at how Cincinnati went from worst team in the league to the Super Bowl. How 2019 they were 2-14. Last year they were this close to winning the Super Bowl. So I'm just saying it can happen to anybody. I'm going to say I want one thing to say about the Buffalo Bills right now, and I'm going to address the Bills Mafia. Don't count on Josh Allen playing now. What does it matter if he misses? Say it, because I know the Bills after this they play Cleveland and then they go to Detroit on Thanksgiving. For me, you have bigger goals in mind. You have bigger aspirations. Do you really want to rush him back just to watch him hurt himself further and ruin your chances of what you ultimately want? Because we know that this year that Western New York will be disappointed if they are not in Phoenix hoisting the Lombardi in 90-something days, which is really, I don't like to think about because of the end of the football season, even though I like hot take off season.
I thought you wouldn't want to think about that because one of your rivals would be winning the Super Bowl, but that as well.
Someone also posted on Twitter the other day saying that what if this current this current Bills team did what they did in the 90s where they go to 4 straight and they lose 4 straight?
Ha!
That's where the little devil in me is smiling very dickishly, being like, don't get me all hot and bothered, sir. Excuse me. But that's my thing. I'm ready for the Vikings to win this game and the national media to declare them. They beat the Bills. They're going to the Super Bowl. They're unstoppable. And then the Vikings, I'm going to tell you right now, they have the Cowboys and the Patriots coming up at 4:25 and 8:20. And I think those are 2 letdown spots for them at home, considering, guess what? Kirk Cousins doesn't play well after 4 o'clock. So I'm going to say that right now. I'm going to say Minnesota takes it this week. The league overreacts, and then they go on a bit of a slide. Meanwhile, with Buffalo, if you lose this one, you know what? Don't panic. I know their last 3 games will look wonky. You want to look wonky at this time of year because guess what? Come December, you want to be playing perfect football.
On this game, I think that even if Josh Allen doesn't play, the Bills are still going to win. The Vikings almost lost to the freaking Commanders. This team, I think that they're good. There's talent. I do think that they're kind of benefiting from this horrific utter implosion of a Packers team, and that's why they have such a good record this year and leading their division. I think they're more due for a letdown here. Even if Josh Allen doesn't play, I just think it could be one of those ugly grind them out games. But the Bills have proven that they can win both ways this year, and I think that this is a game that's going to be, even whether Allen does or doesn't play, lower scoring than people expect. And I think that Buffalo kind of takes control up front, and Kirk Cousins just has a bad day.
I'm going to say this. I like the over 43, though. I'm going to say that. I think Case Keenum can come in. I think this, too, can also be a running back game. But at the same time, too, this is a revenge game for Stephon Diggs. So if you're looking for someone to go off, I think Diggs is going to have a day, especially at home. I'm going to say this. I think, like I said, I said before, I'm ready for that. If Buffalo wins, though, this is why you pay guys like Case Keenum to come in and play, because it's not like it's going to Matt Barkley or Jake Fromm or Mitch Trubisky. No. Case Keenum's reliable. I'm going to go with Buffalo to win just to get that bounce back, because, we do realize that, too, that if Buffalo wins without Case Keenum or without Josh Allen, that shows how good and deep this football team is. And at the end of the day, too, when I come down to defenses, I trust Buffalo's more. But with that being said, give me a Buffalo win, give me a Minnesota cover, give me 28 to or give me 31-28. Give me a 31-28 game.
I could see that if Josh plays. If Allen doesn't play, it's going to surprise people. I think this could end up being like a 21-20, 21-17 type of game.
We'll have to wait and see. I don't think Allen's playing because he hasn't been a participant in the first 2 days of practice. So I think unless he miraculously heals overnight, I don't think he plays this week. And like I said too, if you're a Buffalo Bills fan, you don't want to rush him back. But Jared, it's that wonderful moment of the show.
It's time.
A promo. Cut Houston. Your best heel promo.
Headset hit the floor. Houston, you have a problem, and your problem is that you are trotting out Cider Mills at quarterback to get juiced and gulped down by the Big Blue Wrecking Crew, New York Football Giants, MetLife Stadium, worst team in the league, playing the most impressively overachieving team in the league, fresh off a bye. The Giants, mad as hell after getting embarrassed a little bit by Seattle. They're going to come back strong. Finally, this year, we haven't seen it yet. We have not seen a complete 4-quarter performance, dominating from end to end, winning by multiple touchdowns. The Giants are going to blow out the Texans this Sunday. Saquon Barkley, he might break the single-game rushing record. He's going to run. He's going to score maybe 3 or 4 touchdowns, 200-plus yards easily. Take the freaking over because it's going to be all Giants all day.
That was bliss. That was amazing. I have 2 reasons why I like the Giants in this spot. One is because I think last week was like Houston's overachieving moment. When they cover and they're that miraculous story, when they're going to get their asses kicked and then they cover. But then the next week they go into it. And I think people are forgetting about how bad the Giants truly played against the Seahawks, like the rest of the NFL community. I think this is a perfect spot for the Giants to truly, I know especially without Xavier McKinney, which we can get into in a bit, but this is a spot for the Giants to come out and show, hey, you have the Houston Texans this week, you have the Detroit Lions next week. You have 2 very easy spots to where you can truly cement yourself in that race, because that game on Thanksgiving Day I think that's the game. These are like the warm-ups, because you guys have to go out there Thanksgiving night.
Yes, that's going to basically
show out.
That's going to be like our early. Yeah, we have to get right for that game against Dallas, because if we're going to seriously contend for the division, we've got to win. You got to win these next couple of games. You got to get to 8-2. You got to come in swinging against Dallas at your best. And I think that though with this game, the thing about the Seattle game is I kind of marked that game as a loss on the Giants' schedule because, obviously we were winning like crazy and we were due to lose at some point. And I think that the formula for a team to beat the Giants is you have to have a really strong downfield passing attack because we're not good at playing from behind like that. We're not Daniel Jones is just not at that point right now with our receiving core where he can, just go blow for blow and start chucking these bombs. And Geno Smith kind of overachieving this year, and Seattle with Lockett and Metcalf. I thought they had the weapons to do that. This game, I mean, the Texans, they've got one of the most limited, if not the most limited, passing game in the league. Dameon Pierce is obviously a beast, but here's the thing: the Giants have proven this year that they can win. They can win games in which they allow 100+ yards to the opposing running back. So I think that this is going to be a game like that where Dameon Pierce is going to get his plays. He's going to get his touchdowns. He's going to have a great day, but it's not going to matter because it's not going to be enough. It's not going to be enough to win.
That's just my thing where I look at with the Texans too. I'm just like, this is a perfect spot for Daniel Jones to go in. This feels like a great same game parlay game. Like I like to take Giants -4.5. Give me Saquon's yards. Give me Saquon to get a touchdown. This also feels like too a game for the defense to come back and show themselves. I know Wink had a really kind of iffy exit from Baltimore, and he kind of, it was time for change. I think that's something that's gone unnoticed is how well Wink has been with his Giants defense all year long.
And here's the thing with the Giants defense as well. Now you mentioned it with
Patrick
Wink.
Graham in Vegas.
Yeah, not so. Yeah, don't let the door hit you on the way out. But the thing I find interesting about the Giants is that the Giants defense this year has been pretty consistent. It's been good pretty much every week. But what's interesting is that with Wink Martindale calling the plays, they obviously blitz a ton, but they haven't really racked up a ton of sacks. They've definitely made great halftime adjustments. They've put quarterbacks under pressure. They've gotten the critical stops when they need to. But this has not been an overwhelming, sack-happy defense like the Giants Super Bowl teams of old. Maybe this is the game where they finally break through and we're seeing Davis Mills planted on his rear.
I mean, the Eagles did it very well. I think this is a game, too, where you could see, Leonard Williams is healthy, right? Just blanking on that. Or is he hurt? You cut out there. What'd you say? I think we lost him, folks. That's where I look at guys like him. I look at Tibbs. I look at Dexter Lawrence. I look at those kind of guys that have days. My other thing with the Giants, too, is that I know for as criticizing as Daniel Jones as I've been, Andrew Thomas has been a huge part of this team and why they've been playing really good football this year.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, that was Dave Gettleman. I think that there's a little bit of revisionist history happening this year where he's getting a little bit of retroactive praise because his drafting ability, in terms of his high picks over the last few years, starting to look a lot better now that you put these players in the hands of better coaches. Nobody thought much of Dexter Lawrence. Nobody thought much of Andrew Thomas, but now you put these guys in the hands of competent coaches, and they're playing phenomenal.
Yeah, that's the thing. But at the end of the day, I think when I look at this matchup as a whole, I look at it as the Giants are just the better team here. This could be a potential upset spot, too, for all we know. I don't know. But at the end of the day, when I look at it, it's just the fact that the Giants had a bad game 2 weeks ago going into their bye. That's where I look at it for them to rebound here.
Nailed it.
And we have one more game left for the 1 o'clock window, folks. I'm going to be quick with this one.
Sorry, go on.
If you can see the graphic, Kansas City, Jacksonville. I don't even want to say what the spread is because I
would take them plus 29.5.
I'm going different. I like the Jags to cover for the sole purpose. Kansas City does not do well when they're huge favorites. They do not cover when they're big favorites. Look at last week against Tennessee. They were plus 12.5, and they beat them in overtime. So that's what I'm just here to say. I love the Chiefs to win. There's just a world where I can see a a Jags backdoor cover. I'm either going to be right or they're going to get their fucking doors blown off. I don't think there's any in between. I think it's either a backdoor cover or they get fucking smoked by 20 points. That's literally what I think. Just trying to figure out if Jared's still there or not, but that's literally what I think when it comes to this game. It's either going to be one of those two things. They're either going to backdoor cover or they're going to get fucking blown out.
Sorry about that. But yeah, no, I think that this is going to be a Chiefs blowout 100% of the way. I think that if there was any doubt earlier in the season about Mahomes developing chemistry with the new wide receivers to replace Tyreek Hill, I think that those doubts have completely been cast aside by now. I mean, he's proven that he can connect with Juju, he can connect with Valdez-Scantling, Kelsey's still there producing, Tony. I actually think this is the game where you get like a little bit creative and he starts seeing what he can get out of some of these other pieces in here. Another guy, McCole Hardman, that's been like really sneaky the last couple of weeks. But I think they're gonna try to run the ball a little bit more. This is the game where they're gonna have the leeway to run the ball, I think, just because they're gonna be in control from start to finish. And Kansas City, they've, over the last few games, the only blowout win for them was against San Francisco. And Jacksonville, nice comeback win for them over the Raiders. But I just think Kansas City they're getting to a point where they're like starting to round into form. And I'd just say right now, coming out of last week, you got to say that they're looking like the best team in the AFC right now, I think. And I just think this is a walk in the park for them. I think that Jacksonville ETN has been playing awesome, but this is going to be a game where you're just not going to be able to run the ball as much because Kansas City is going to jump out early.
Yeah, I'm not going to bet this game. It's just when I look at that's just how I think of it. I'm also in a spread pool, so that's why I like to pay attention to the spreads. If you want to get to a game that's called the mid-off, you can watch Vegas play the Colts this week, where the Colts are plus 4.5. The Colts have done some goofy things since getting their ass kicked by the Patriots. And this game also has an over-under of 40.5. But if we've learned anything, you do not bet the over when Sam Ehlinger is the starting quarterback. With that being said, also, too, if I look at anything for this game, I look for a Devontae Adams big game. Why? Because the Raiders have no one else to throw to unless you want to go down the Mac Hollins rabbit hole once again.
Mm-hmm. I think that the Colts are definitely, I think, going to have opportunity in this game just because the Raiders defense is terrible. But at the same time, I think that they're just so limited with this new quarterback. And also it's Jeff Saturday's first game as a coach. And I mean, I got to say, he cut a hell of a babyface promo in the interview. I thought that was awesome. I definitely like, I like where his head's at, but I just don't think, the experience just isn't there, and what he's got to work with isn't there. Jonathan Taylor, I believe he's going to miss this game as well. Is that correct?
He's questionable, but I think they're optimistic that he'll play this week. If you're looking for two players to throw in for parlays, that's the other thing too. If Jonathan Taylor plays, I will take the Colts. I'm going to go with the Raiders right now because they're the better team. But there's also a voice inside of me saying that what if Jeff Saturday leads the Colts to like a rah-rah victory and they, it's like this miraculous thing, and all of a sudden it's like, look, the Colts are fixed. It's this.
I could totally see that playing out. The only thing is that the Raiders are coming off of that awful loss to the script is there. I think the Raiders are the perfect team for the Colts to do that against. The only thing is that already happened last week against the Jaguars. And even though I think the Raiders are a slip on a banana peel mess, right? Yeah. Like they're a team that can't get out of their own way, can't close games out. They have the talent, but they just can't figure out how to win. I do think that there's still the talent there with Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs where they're not going to lose every week. And the record looks terrible right now, but I just think that coming off being embarrassed against the Jaguars, and now you're facing the Colts, who there is definitely the chance for that rah-rah inspiration. I just think that with this quarterback, they are very, very limited in what they can do. So I'm actually going to take the Raiders here, although your scenario wouldn't surprise me in the slightest.
I'm still going to take the Raiders, but there's like a little voice being like, Colts rah-rah. But it's just like what I've seen from the Colts in the last few weeks, I'm just like, I just can't. Like, they have to go out there and show it to me. I'm curious to this fact because I want to look at the Colts schedule quickly just to see like where it's going. But after this, give me a second, folks. The Colts, I think they haven't had their bye week yet. Yeah, they have a late bye. They have week 14. Oh, do you want to know who they play after the Raiders? They play the Eagles. And then week 12, we're treated to them and the Steelers on Monday Night Football. Thank you very much, ESPN. And then they have at the Cowboys in Sunday Night Football. Then they have their bye. Then they go to Minnesota. Then they play the Chargers on Monday night. Then they play your Giants. And then they host the Texans. So if they don't win against the Raiders, it's going to be rough sledding ahead. But I have a weird take on this that watch them be the ones to break the Eagles' undefeated season. Just
Big Rat said the exact same thing. The Frank Reich, oh, nope, not anymore. Whoops, narrative out the window. But I do think the Eagles, they're not really an undefeated team. They're not gonna go undefeated. They're gonna lose at some point. And you know what? Maybe it's gonna be. And I think that it's easy to say it would be to a divisional rival, but there's gonna be that game they're sleeping on. Maybe it's the Colts.
That's where I'm like, I look at that and I'm like, besides that Monday nighter that we get to be treated to when it's the Steelers and the Colts, thank you very much, NFL and ESPN. When I look at that, I saw that. I'm like, that's a weird game where I'm like, because the Colts, like when the Eagles lose, they're going to lose to a team that no one expects. Like, remember the Steelers 2 years ago lost their undefeated season to the football team. That's literally what happened.
Oh, yeah, sure. No, it happened. It definitely, yeah. You're not wrong one bit.
America's Game of the Week features the Green Bay Packers taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys are minus 4.5. Over under a 43. But I have a weird feeling here that for some reason the Cowboys have a letdown spot. Call me crazy or not. There's that voice being like, bad loss spot. I know the Packers are on a bad streak. Cowboys are coming off of a bye. This is a spot, though, where I could see it happening. The other thing I could see happening as well, if you really want to get your money involved in this game, over 43 points.
Yeah, no, I think that this I could see being a game where the Green Bay offense finally gets it together, that Rodgers finally, starts stringing together some drives. It looks like the Rodgers of old. Romeo Doubs, what's his status?
Last I saw, I think it's still questionable. I don't think Watson's going though, but I think Dobbs is questionable. I think it's one of those like iffy situations on like if he does play or not.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, with him, Rodgers, there's definitely a connection there that was brewing, and I think that they totally would have blown the doors off of Detroit if he didn't get hurt. I think that totally changed the whole trajectory of that game, the whole vibe of it. I think it would have been a different type of game entirely if he played. And because Lazard obviously is capable of making the big plays, but he is not a Devontae Adams type. He's not a guy that Rodgers is going to be able to throw to, 15 times and, like that. He's more of just kind of, the couple big plays here and there. But
exactly,
I do think that the Packers will get up a little bit for this game. Rodgers is, he still has that ability in him. It's been a frustrating season, but he's not going to play that bad every single week. And although Dallas does have a good defense, on paper this should be Cowboys big. I will say that I just can't quite see the upset. I think Dallas still wins, but I would say if Dobbs plays, more of a chance. If Dobbs does not play, I really can't see Green Bay winning this game.
My thing is, there's a world where I can see it, but you're going to hate me for this. But if the Dallas Cowboys can play solid defense for the rest of the year and Dak can play where he's been playing, this could be the year the Dallas Cowboys break through. I'm not trying to say it. I know you probably hate me for saying that. I just like look at it from that perspective because every year when they go to the playoffs, it's always – it's their year. They won the division, this and that. You get in as a wild card team, there's not as much pressure on you to win. Now, that being said, Dallas is different. I'm just saying that with the Cowboys. But at the end of the day, too, I'm a smart man. I'm going to go with the team off the bye week. But I'm going to say this, though. I'm going to say Dallas wins, but I think Green Bay can cover – Dallas is – wait, is it Dallas minus 4.5 or is it Green Bay minus 4.5? I got to check out the spread one more time. Because if I got the graphic wrong, I'm sorry, people. I just wanted to check that out. No, it's Dallas minus 4.5. Give me the points of the Packers, but give me the Dallas Cowboys to win.
Yeah, no, it's a fair statement. I mean, I definitely, as a Giants fan, I think I'm more concerned about the Cowboys as a serious threat than the Eagles. I think the Eagles have just had a softer schedule. I think
Yeah.
that, the Cowboys seem more like well-rounded to me in terms of I think that Dak Prescott is twice as good of a quarterback as Jalen Hurts is, and their defense is to me the Eagles defense, they've just feasted off of weak competition. The Cowboys are an actual game-wrecking defense that can shut down and truly dominate a team. So I see the argument for them being a Super Bowl contender. I have like a weird feeling this year that like the Niners are going to find a way in. I don't know. It's just they don't really, they've kind of lost. They've lost more games than people would think they would have, given the quality of their roster. But I could see a Cowboys Niners NFC Championship game. Honestly, rekindling that old rivalry from the mid '90s.
I
But
was gonna
yeah,
say I was gonna save it for the Sunday night game, but the 49ers are my dark horse from the NFC.
yeah, no, I'm starting to believe that Christian McCaffrey might be that like kind of missing piece in a way, especially and once they get Debo Samuel healthy too, you get all those guys, the two of them, Kittle going at the same time. Um, yeah, I think that they could surprise people this year. As for we're already moving on. Yeah, Cowboys up.
It's That's the only thing I was going to say quickly. We'll get into it in a second with the 49ers, but with this game, because I have nothing really to say at this game. I just like Arizona. I think that this is a game that they can steal, but it's that game though where like, especially if there's no Matt Stafford. If Matt Stafford plays,
Ugh.
it's a different story, but I don't think he's going to play. This is the game where I think that the Cardinals can do just enough to get by. This is another game too where I like the under because look, it's John Wofford and it's Kyler Murray going up against the Rams front four. When the Rams front four is still tough, I think they'll limit Kyler Murray, but I think Kyler Murray can do just enough to get the Cardinals to win. And I don't say them covering because at 1.5, if you're betting a team, unless you're betting them as a favorite, if you're betting a 1.5 dog, you're basically saying that you like them to win outright.
Yeah, no, I mean I think that if Matt Stafford plays, the Rams, this is a get right spot for them. And if
Yeah.
he doesn't play, then the Cardinals are going to win. The Cardinals, obviously, this is going to be an ugly game. A lot of these Rams games this year have been ugly because although the offense has been absolutely putrid, the defense has, I think, they've been mostly consistent in like giving them an opportunity to win most of their games. But that being said, the Cardinals' offense, since getting Hopkins back, they've been scoring points consistently, and I think they're due for a win. When you continuously get touchdowns every week, you're going to win a game sooner or later. So if Matt Stafford doesn't play, perfect opportunity for them to steal a game, pushing the Rams down to 3-6 by now, which is kind of hard to believe. But it's just an ugly team this year. They're just so depleted. I mean, I think that I will say this. I think Cam Akers has wrecked their season, completely wrecked their season. This is a guy who his rookie year, the back end of his rookie year, he had a bunch of huge games, and you thought he was going to be the running back of the future. I know
They tore
I
his
was about,
Achilles.
yeah, exactly. Achilles injury, and then last he came back at the end of last year for the playoffs, wasn't really that effective, and then early this year, ineffective, and now he's on the outs and Sean McVay, he loves to run the ball. Now he can't do that, so you're just left with a really great wide receiver and nothing else.
Exactly. But when I look at the Cardinals' schedule, so they have after this they have the Rams, and then they go to and then they're home for San Francisco, but they go to Mexico City for that game, and then they host the Chargers, and they have their bye week, and then they have the Patriots coming in. If the Cardinals lose their next 3 games, I think there's a serious chance Cliff Kingsbury is out. I think there's a serious chance because if they are at that point 3-9 going into that Patriot Monday nighter, because after that, their schedule has some cupcakes. Like you have the Broncos and you have the Falcons and then the Bucs on Christmas. But if they lose their next 3 in a row, and that is then ever since Call of Duty came out, they'd be 0-5. But in their only win being that Saints game, which I think was just an outlier. They had the 2 pick sixes. You take those away, the Saints win that game, and then you beat a sorry Panthers team that was still reeling with Matt Rule. I just can see a world where that happens. I think this is more about a get right game for the Arizona Cardinals than it is the Rams, because even if the Rams win, it's still a very tough path for them to get to the postseason. They basically have to effectively win a lot of their games. Basically, the Rams are at the point where you're playing January football in November, and you do not want to do that because if you're doing that, you're effectively already out of the playoff picture.
Yeah, I think that we might look back on that Rams-Bucks game as like that was kind of a playoff game in a way,
Yeah.
where the winner had a pulse and the loser's in big trouble. Rams are in big trouble, but at the same time, I don't think the Rams are going to go 3-13 or anything like that. So it's not going to be a total dumpster fire of a season. And I mean, the Cardinals don't even feel like a dumpster fire either. I just feel like both these teams, they're going to win some games and they're going to kind of stay in it. Although the hole that they've dug for themselves, they're probably going to fall out of the race by the time mid-December rolls around. But as for this game, I think it really just hinges on whether Stafford plays or not.
Exactly. That's my big thing too with them. And then with the Rams, like because that's my thing with the Rams, I think it's gonna be tougher for them. But with Arizona, I think their season would have been better if D Hop wasn't suspended. I think if he's not suspended, this team is at least 4-5 or 5-4 at this point.
No, 100%. I mean, he's DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, they don't have another guy nearly at his level to step up in his place.
Exactly. And we're on to Sunday Night Football. San Francisco versus the Chargers, where the Chargers are +7. The over-under at 44.5. Why do I like LA to cover here?
Oh yeah, that spread's way too big.
I was like Sanford. I think I think this is the fact that the Chargers, like they had the close call with the Falcons. They have had a bit of a few shaky games lately, and the fact that San Francisco's last game was absolute domination over the Rams. I still like the Niners to win this game, but I like the Chargers to cover, especially the numbers like that. If the number was like 5 or 4, I'd go Niners. But the fact that it's 7, I can't see the Chargers going on primetime and laying a stinker.
What is the status of Williams and Allen? What are we looking at right now?
All right, give me a second. I just got to pull up the stats, my trusted score app. Also, we have a game update right now. It is 0-0, and Carolina has the ball. As it goes for injuries, Allen is questionable, and who else is on here? There's a lot. Jesus, dude, they have so many players hurt right now. So many players hurt. Like I forgot, they don't have Joey Bosa, they don't have J.C. Jackson, they don't have Jerry Tillery, Donald Parham, Joshua Kelly, Jalen Guyton, Trey Pipkins, Rashawn Slater. Like man, the Chargers are banged up. But yeah, Dustin Hopkins is also questionable. So I think, everyone's basically questionable. But I think with Keenan Allen, he's more than likely. I think they're saying he's probably going to return this week, either this week or next week when the Chargers will be in back-to-back games, back-to-back primetime games.
Yeah, no, I think that's going to make a difference. I really think that the Chargers, I mean, this is kind of, this is just the classic Chargers season where they come in with this super duper impressive roster on paper. They added pieces. I think going into the season, most people would have looked at the Chargers and said, this could be a top 5 roster in the league. So much talent both sides of the ball, but they've always just had issues closing out games. And, this year, obviously the injury bug has really crippled them. It feels like they are due for a win. But at the same time, San Francisco is better than their record. So it's a really tough game because I feel like both teams really could use a win this week. But especially with these injuries and stuff, I feel like I do like the Chargers to cover, but I like San Francisco to win as well.
I'm the same. I like the Niners to win the game, but I like the Chargers to cover. The number's just too big for that. If this was like 3.5 or something like that, then yeah, I take this 49ers. But I don't trust the 49ers at a big number, especially in a game, too, where it is interconference. But at the same time, too, when I look at that, I'm just like, the Chargers aren't that bad of a team. I think it's just people trying to skew, thinking that, the 49ers are going to dominate. They're going to run all over them. It's basically people just trying to sucker people into bet. It's kind of like how last week with Philadelphia and Houston. And I'm going to quickly segue that into Monday night's game. Because Philadelphia and Washington, I think it's the same logic applies. This one more so because in divisional games, you do not take high spreads. Eagles are going to go 9-0, but the Commanders are going to cover no matter how much of a scumbag their owner is.
Yeah. In this game, yeah, I think that Washington, after playing Minnesota tough, probably will hang around in this game because I think that all this winning is going to start to wear on Philly sooner or later. They're due for a loss. They're not as good as their record. And, I mean, obviously they're good enough to beat this crummy Commanders team. Although Taylor Heineke, I don't know why they didn't just stick with him going into the season. It's like you've played against Carson Wentz in your division. You saw how bad he was with the Colts. You know that this guy sucks. I don't know what they were thinking in acquiring him. Taylor Heineke has shown that he can step up in spots for this team and at least keep this team competitive to a degree. He seems to have decent chemistry with their receivers. I feel like he's done okay for them the last couple of years. So they're in better hands with him at quarterback, and that's why they put together a couple wins. But Philly, still the better team, still just too much talent for them not to lose, for them to not win this game. I do like Washington to cover, though. Divisional matchup.
Yeah, like I said, I like Philly to win. I like Washington to cover. I'm not going to be watching this game. I have a concert I'm going to, so I'm just like, man.
Oh, Taylor Swift is coming to town.
Yeah, close. But, for the most part, when I look at that, I'm just like, I just don't trust the divisional games that are big spreads where you expect them. These two teams, even though Washington is still the worst of the two, divisional teams know each other very well. I'm laying big rat knowledge on everybody right now. So that's where I'm saying it. Philadelphia to win, Washington to cover. But I will say this as well. If you want another Commanders loss, look to Week 13 when they go to the Giants. Why? Because the Giants are bringing back the retros that they beat the Bears in. You don't bet against teams when it's a uniform retro game. No, you do not, unless it's the Giants and they're whites.
Yes. I would agree with that. Those uniforms have been our good luck charm.
Exactly. Well, that's all the games we got. Week 10 is done. I know my co-host is done with the middle class of the YWC because none of us here are the middle class of the YWC. We start there. There are the middle class people. I'm not even in this. That's the thing. I just keep the title because it's cool and it keeps the gimmick alive. But at the same time, too, we rarely talk wrestling here. It's always wrestling related stuff. But for the most part, it's always fun to come on and talk football. Jared, it was fun as always to talk football. We'll have to do it again soon. Get you in one of these groups, maybe with a Danny or a Big Rat or who knows. But anyway, guys, before I let Jared sign off and say a few words, I'm just going to let you know about the schedule. Next, we have Matt Beast coming on Sunday. It was supposed to record on Tuesday. Stuff came up, so him and I will be on Sunday night. And then next week, Nightmare 10, once again, Phil is back on. And then I have the Thanksgiving show with Big Rat and maybe some guests along the way. So fun, exciting times coming up on YWC Football Talk. Jared, do you have any final words to say before we sign off tonight?
Let's go Giants! Boom! And Cordell Patterson and Deonta Foreman, please run for 100 yards, each of you.
I just need Alec Griff. That's all I need. Alec Griff. I took the Terrace Marshall touchdown because I was like, fuck it, why not? And then so far it is 3-0, by the way. Eddie Pinheiro just kicked a 63-yard field goal. And
46. 63 yards. That'd be mighty impressive.
Oh, kick 63 yards. That's the kickoff. My bad.
That's the kickoff. Come on, Griff.
I'm reading this
your first day.
I am reading the app and I'm reading what just happened and not down here where it shows Eddie Pinheiro field goal, even though 2 weeks ago Eddie Pinheiro cost the Carolina Panthers a win over the Atlanta Falcons. But anyway, guys, like I said, YWC Middle Class, done with this episode, done with. Jared, see you next time, buddy. For everyone out there, though, enjoy Week 10. Let's go win some cake.
Peace.